It's 6:30. Welcome, everyone. I have to apologize for those of you standing out in the cold. We were just commenting on how we thought there'd be more people showing up, and as it turns out, you were here. So welcome. My name is Bensel. I'm Vice President of Engagement and Business Services here at Como, and we just really appreciate you all being here tonight. And I'm honored to just moderate this for you all. I'll do the best I can. It's a pretty easy crowd as it appears, so I'm not anticipating anything too crazy tonight. But go over to kind of set some expectations in terms of our agenda. First of all, we're going to have our candidates for school board speak. The order of speaking will be Bo, Helms, Brant, Uptergrove, Neal, Allison, and then Brittney Wilson. And what we'll do is we'll give you each 5 minutes. I'll start a timer up here on my desk, and then when we get close, if you're still talking, we'll give you some indication it's time to start wrapping up. I would ask you not to go over by more 10 or 15 minutes. We'll start losing interest in the crowd. So after we know with our school board candidates, Dr. Robinson is going to give a discussion on the levy proposition. We've got 20 minutes scheduled for that. And then followed by that, Calen is going to give a presentation on the bond issue.
Well, there's a group.
There's a group. Okay. Well, then I've got more than Calen. I got Mark, Coach Bill Duke, and possibly others. Yep, I just stuck with the first one. So, yes, sir?
And then I was going to address them on the Senate Bill 190.
Yep, I've got you
Okay.
A little bit later on. So we'll take a break at that point, and then we'll resume. And then Mr. Lutz, then you will follow with property tax proposition. And so we will when we resume, we'll go to questions, and we'll do the property tax proposition last. So this is going to be live stream, and so I believe Becky, one stream or two, or how many different?
Hopefully by tonight, maybe not tomorrow morning.
Very good.
I'm still editing on it, and then it'll be posted on the school's Facebook account on the Tipton school's YouTube channel.
Very good.
Yep.
Very well. So by the looks of it, most of us here are participating, so the audience will probably be a lot virtual. So we'll have a chance for questions for folks. And enjoy the evening. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all. So Mr. Helms, you're up first.
Okay.
And so if you'd like to grab the microphone, this side, and introduce yourself, and you've got 5 minutes to yeah, go ahead.
Sure,
Come on
I'll
up
come
here.
up
I think that'll work good.
Okay, I think I know most of the people here, but my name's Bo Helms. I am not from Tipton. I'm from Owensville, Missouri. That is a small town near in Gascony County. I grew up there with my parents both being teachers. My dad was a coach, an athletic director at one point in time. So I've been in. It seems growing up, I was either on a ball field or in a gym. After that, I went to Mizzou, took a job in Mississippi, in St. Louis and Kentucky, and then down in Mississippi for 9 years, and then relocated here in 2014 whenever I took a job with my company at our corporate office. Whenever we relocated back, my wife's family lives here in Tipton, so we were kind of like going to stay in their place for a little bit as we were looking for homes in Columbia, and then just ended up falling in love with the community. So I am an incumbent on the board. I've been on the board for several years. I'm currently in the vice president role. I've got 4 kids. All 4 of my children grew up at Tipton for the most part, so we've had experience in all 3 of the schools. For work, I manage the property side of our insurance carrier. I kind of have 2 different jobs. I do that, and that's mostly about dealing with regulatory issues, policies and procedures. I draft and help draft policies involved in a lot of corporate projects and things of that nature. And I also manage the catastrophe side of our company as well. So I kind of wear 2 different hats. Unfortunately, over the last couple of years, it seems like the catastrophe job has been the one that I've been dealing with most. As you guys know, we've had a lot of stuff going on over the last couple of weeks with that and the weather. As far as other things I'm involved in, in the industry, I've served on different types of leadership roles. I've served on the advisory board with CoreLogic, which is one of Google's largest customers. I currently serve and work with committees in the Insurance Institute of Business and Building Safety. I'm on their emerging tech committee, along with their residential committee, which I chair currently. And then in the past, I've served on their TRA board, spent some time doing that. I am the probably best value we've had in a junior high coach over the last couple of years. I volunteered my time to do that. I have my daughter plays, my son plays. We've got some other kids that get involved in different things, but we do a lot of travel basketball. But I spend a lot of time chasing her around. As far as my reasons for being on the board, to be honest, I try to be on if there's some sort of leadership opportunity, I try to grab onto. And anytime I want to be a part of the decision-making process. So Tipton has a ton of different, I think as a district, we're facing a lot of different obstacles and difficulties over the next couple of years, especially when you're looking at federal and state type funding. We've got a lot of things that are going to be introduced from a regulatory perspective. We've got salaries and financial concerns. I think that there's just a lot of opportunities for these decisions that we make over the next couple of years to be long lasting. I think it's a pretty valuable point in time for us to make good decisions. And I'm not really one that wants to sit on the sidelines as those decisions are made. So that's really the reason I want to be on the board. I still have 3 kids going through school, and I want to be a part of that. I will turn it over to you.
Very good. Nice job. So we know, again, when we get after break, we'll have the time for questions. So we'll have a chance to come back, and if you write down some questions, we'll bring them back before the group. Mr. Uptergrove, come on up.
Over there.
I tell you what, I think so, and I'm a little concerned about your mic picking stuff.
It's fine, actually.
Okay, very good.
As long as they stay close to it.
Very good. It's always a little nerve-wracking when you come up here and running for office. I just applaud every one of you for doing this. So I don't know how often you give public speeches, but not all of us give public speeches all the time. So hopefully, as we go on, it'll get a little bit more relaxing and have a good time with it. So you've got 5 minutes, sir.
Well, it's great. Everybody hear me all right? I had a warm up with lunch today. I spoke to a group of retirees about cybersecurity, so it was my prep
Your word.
for the day. Yeah. Brant, Uptergrove. I lived here in Tipton till I was 7, then moved to Columbia. Columbia grew very fast. When I lived there, there was 40,000 residents when I moved in. I left at 32 years old 10 years ago, so I've been here 10 years. Every time we came back, it was almost every weekend for a long time, and you always felt at home. You felt welcomed. A lot of that revolved around just the parish community of St. Andrews, which I'm an active member in. Also just things going with my grandpa to Tipton basketball games, baseball games, football games, anything like that. Basically spent half my time over on Center Street where my grandparents lived, and now my cousin Romy lives there. And just always a great time to walk outside, hear the drums on Friday night, walk across the street, go to the game, feel welcome and open in the community. As I've said online and in the paper, I've just become increasingly interested in things that are going on in our community. I feel that it's important for me to step up at this time and just lend my time, lend my experience. Some of my experience started 19 years ago in technology for a local company called Midwest Computech. Myself and David Nivens kind of spearheaded our Columbia office development in Jefferson City. Have a wide range of experience there. I left that after 15 and a half years and became Chief Information Officer for Katy Trail Community Health in Sedalia. It was a big career swing for me. It's still in the tech field, but all the rules and regulations and everything with federal grant funding and everything that went along with the position at Katy Trail really helped open my eyes to all the programs that are out there and available. We came off of a bunch of COVID funding, similar to like Tipton, influx COVID funding, buy a bunch of Chromebooks, you buy all this stuff. How do you keep up with that after a couple of years? Because no more money's coming in. So we got very creative with going out searching for grants. There are thousands of grants literally available for everything. And it's just a part of going out and pursuing those grants to get that type of funding. I enjoyed weeding through the paperwork on that. Some of them were more challenging than others, but that experience, along with working with, right now I work with about 9 school districts. I help them develop their technology budgets, help them with their planning, help them with their day-to-day operations, whether helping with staffing or just basic needs, anything like that. Work with a large number of nonprofits and other corporate entities. So understand that budgeting is very important. You cannot just go out and, if something comes up, yes, it may be a small figure, relative to your overall budget, but all those things add up. And adding them up over time is just, you don't want that to become just a major problem for your cash flow and revenues as a school. So with that being said, kind of just my experience at work and involvement in the community. I'm on TRA board like Bo used to be. Do Tipton youth football. That's brought probably one of the greatest joys in my life, other than my wife and kids, is working with our young kids and showing them that, hey, if you show up and try, you can better yourself each and every day. And that's one thing that I want. There's a lot of opportunities in our community, and our kids deserve that, and they deserve the best. And I want to make sure we have a strong foundation for that. So it's kind of why I'm here. I want to give my best, give my all, use my experience to help out the Tipton community. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Neal, you're up. Welcome.
My name is Neal, Allison. Lived in Tipton pretty much my whole life, minus a few trips overseas from Sam. My experience, I've worked with the monster we all know as government my entire life. So I have gotten very much into the weeds on government fundings, government contracts, working with international government agencies, coordinating with our government agencies. I spent time in Kuwait after the fall of Afghanistan, Kuwait and Qatar, after the fall of Afghanistan, setting up a refugee camp for the Afghan refugees, where I had to coordinate CIA, Homeland Security, the United Nations, and the International Office on Migration. We had to get all of us together and agree on a way to process Afghan refugees into our country. And it was something that we'd never done before as a country. We've never done it this way. So I'm pretty adept in coming up with solutions on the fly or outside of the box, because in situations like that, you kind of have to. I was in the military for 24 years as a combat medic, but that's not all I did too. I worked at Jeff City full-time for the Guard, where I worked in medical boards, where I worked with soldiers, making sure they got the money, funding, and healthcare they needed when they were injured or couldn't be in the military any longer. I spent 17 years up there, been in the military for 24. As far as like local community involvement, I haven't been involved too much in local community, because even on years when I was home, I was still gone a month or two for various things. I did some archery coaching for St. Andrews, some youth coaching on my daughter's teams. My wife Yolanda's here. I got a daughter Nina who's in high school right now. The reason why I decided to run for board is because I'm retiring. So I got a lot of time on my hands. I'm used to being involved in things. Like when I was in the military, I was heavily involved in things. I was put on every board. I just was involved, heavily involved, was always busy. Now I'm not. And I did a lot of talking to community members at football games, at benefits, basketball games, about why these bond issues won't pass. And nobody had the same answer. Everybody had their different answers, but most of it all came down to just people have kind of lost their trust in school, and nobody had the same answers why. Like, I'm not blaming a particular person, because nobody had the same answer why they lost their trust. Just a lot of people have come up with reasons why I don't trust the board or the school or whoever. It was a different reason every time. So I think that my experience in getting all these things to work together would help with getting back to the community to figure out why we've lost that trust and getting that trust back. Because the best way to get people to agree to do things with you is to get them to see how it benefits them individually. Everybody comes at it from a community perspective. It's harder to get people to vote for things from a community perspective. You have to try to convince them how it helps them or their family directly. So I just think that was my big issue, because like we're having trouble keeping teachers. I know we hear about that all the time, and that comes down to bond issues mainly, in my opinion. Because without better pay and compensation, we can't retain quality teachers. We can't get new teachers. Our facilities have been falling behind around surrounding communities. You see all these other communities getting new facilities, new tracks, new fields, and for some reason we can't do it. And it's not because of Tipton, because Tipton, you go to any Canton benefit, you go to any St. Andrews Thanksgiving benefit, money flying around everywhere. So it's not because Tipton doesn't have the money or the people that are willing to do it. We just have to reconnect with them to get them to do it for us and for the school. So that's it, and that's pretty much why I'm running. I can't keep it short. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, sir. Brittney, I think you're up. Welcome.
You can see me over this.
I can see you.
I always face this challenge, and my mic is hitting this, so I might just step over the side.
That's fine.
Okay, so I'm Brittney Wilson. I am a graduate from the district. I have 3 kids currently in the district. My oldest one is in the 612 building, and then I have 2 kiddos in the elementary. My husband and I have lived here for about 6 or 7 years now. We came from Stover. That's still a touchy subject in my house. My husband's the town baby, but he is proudly wearing the red and black colors now. The orange is still there, but we've been here and we love it. So my experience, I have been in education for 10 plus years. I've worked as a para. I started as a para in Sedalia, and I worked there for a year, and I learned real quick that was not for me. And then I worked while I was subbing. I subbed my entire time I was in college, so pretty much full time. I long-term subbed everywhere between Versailles, Smithton, Holcamp, Stover, and then once I got my degree, then I took a job in Stover, and I spent 3 years there where I taught 6th through 8th grade ELA. I was a softball coach, and then I took a job 3 years later in Tipton. Sorry, I'm gonna move over here. 3 years later in Tipton, I came over and I took a job here with Dr. Rob, and I remember him telling me, I want you to start the cadet teaching program. So I came here, I started the cadet teaching program, and then I took over the A+ program, and I also was given the softball position after the COVID year, because COVID year came, and that was a tough time for us. And talk about a rough transition. Okay, so when I came to Tipton, we were one-to-one with Chromebooks, but nobody really used anything. And then I remember when I used Google Classroom for the first time, parents were losing their minds over this Google Classroom transition. And then next year, sure enough, COVID comes in, and then I'm rolling out teaching Google Classroom to everybody who has taught me as a student in their classroom. So I did that for a couple of years and then continued to coach. And then I had the opportunity to expand my career, and I took a job which I've been doing for the last 3.5 years now. I'm an instructional coach at the Sedalia 200 district at the junior high building. So I work with 30 plus teachers on a daily basis, and I lead weekly collaboration meetings with them where we review and facilitate data. We look at assessments, align them to state standards, make sure, formulate plans for reteaching. So things aren't going good, how can we revise those? I'm also in charge of finding curriculum, vetting curriculum, going through those, checking what meets our state standards, and then communicating with teachers on their needs. With this job, I also have a very unique position where I get to work with admin daily in my building. So we have weekly admin meetings and then daily admin meetings with different principals throughout the building. So it's a little different than a smaller district such as Tipton, because in my building, we have 3 principals, well, 1 main principal and 3 assistant principals that we go to for different needs. So we work with our admin hand in hand every day. With my position, I'm also a mentor teacher. So every new teacher that comes into the building, I mentor them, take them in. We have a very stout process that we follow quarter by quarter. And I love it. I love that. I'll be frank, when I left Tipton, I was thinking about getting out of education because I was kind of burnt out. And this has been like a breath of fresh air. It's been fun to like work with teachers, and I felt like that was something I never got at Tipton, was support from just other teachers, other people like just holding my hand and making my life easier. And this has been a breath of fresh air for me. And it's something that I want to bring to the community, is just that breath of fresh air. Also, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. But also with my kids, so my oldest kiddo, I told you, I have a range. I have the ability to fight for kids educationally because my oldest kiddo, she's been in gifted classes since she was in kindergarten, and she's currently a 7th grader taking high school classes. So I have to advocate for her on that end. But then on the flip side of that, my younger kiddo, my 9-year-old, he's been basically a title kid his entire life. And that's been a challenge. So I've got one kid who is racing through everything. I don't ever have to check anything. And then my other kid, I have to ask 17 times, is this done? Then I'm sending his dad the same messages, oh, can you check? Because he says it's done. And then, that's just a never ending battle. And then my youngest child, she's just like our average J. So that's been a battle that I love and like to challenge and take on. And like these guys have been saying, it's not anything new, and I'm not going to waste your time saying it over and over. It's no secret that teacher pay, the bond issues for not being able to get the facilities passed, and everything else, that's all a massive concern. And I do believe that whenever you're in this position, transparency is key. And I feel like that's something that these guys have been saying also, that transparency hasn't been there. The community isn't having buy-in, and we have to have those things. And I feel like my biggest push when I was in the classroom was to raise good humans. And I feel like sometimes we as educators and we as people in the community forget that the reason that we're here is because we want to do what's best for kids. So when we make any decision that is related to the school, whether it's teacher salary, whether it's space for the athletes, whether it's anything that comes up, that we are centered around what's best for kids. And when we make that our objective, and we can be objective and put the needs of our own kids aside for the better of the district, then I feel like we're making progress in that. And I just want to be able to be a confidential liaison between the community and the school board, where people feel comfortable coming to me, bringing their issues and their concerns, knowing that I will take them to the board and I will present them with confidentiality, but then also push for transparency between the board and the community, because I feel like that's something that we have been lacking, and I feel like that's the reason that we don't get the passes for the teacher pay. And as a former teacher of the district, nobody understands the teacher pay thing higher than I do. I mean, that was one of my biggest pushes for leaving this district. I hands down never would have left it had it not come down to that. And again, COVID year, everything increases by 40%, and you can't pay bills on your current salary, so you have to look elsewhere. And fortunately for me, it's been a position that's pushed me into allowing me to grow and be a leader with my teachers, with my admin, and it's pushed me to feel comfortable to advocate for teachers in the community. So whenever, I just want to make sure that my goal stays focused on kids, and we every day that when we come to make a discussion or a decision about the school and the community and its future, we ask what is best for kids.
Very good, thank you. Great job.
So proud.
Let's give all these candidates a round of applause.
Great job. Dr. Rob has got a presentation, so we are going to, at break, collect questions from the audience, and we'll come back and we'll circle back and do a little bit of a forum. But in the meantime, I think you'd all be more relaxed, probably sit in the audience so you can view and not have to look over your shoulder. So if you want to find your family or wherever you want a comfortable seat, we'll get the presentation keyed up. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have it, Kelsey? You can do that.
Dr. Ross, are you gonna be standing closer to this?
No, but I can.
Thank you.
That's one. Kelsey is going to be my clicker over there, so I'm going to point every once in a while. So I thought I'd start with something positive. It's a great day to be a Cardinal.
Every day, all day.
There we go. Thank you, Roxanne. That's our cheerleaders at the Final Four. You can see our team right there representing the red and white. So I think we have a lot to be proud of here in Tipton School District. We have a great football team. We have a great basketball team. We have some great academics. We have some things that are going on in our building that weren't going on 8 years ago. We have a great vocational programs. We have award-winning vocational programs. At one point, when I first came here, I was the last hired superintendent in the state in 2017. And that's a rough place to be, to drink from 2 fire hoses and pretty much a new board at the time. And it has been a great capstone of my career. This was my 5th school district. And you'll see me on the front page. I'm announcing my retirement at the close of next year. So we'll be doing a transition year to make sure we get the new person on board. But go ahead and Kelsey, hit that one. Our current Board of Education is listed there. I know a lot of people know who these people are, but you can see some longtime names and some people who have represented our community well. I think Bo Helms, you win the award for longest member on the board. So that's 9 years, going on 9 years. Bo was actually here a year before I came here. So he has a long service there. And of course, you see some names on there that are longtime members of our community. I think that's important. There have been 17 board members since I've been here, since 2017. So 17 different members of the community. And I appreciate that we have 4 people running for the board here tonight. But 17 different people, and listening to, it's hard enough with 7 different bosses, but I had 17 bosses since 2017 and trying to listen to what they want. So go ahead. And so we've passed every audit with no financial impropriety. We've grown our fund balance to the highest it's been in the last 20 years that I can go back. And we've kept our school financially stable. All the projects directed by those 17 people who have been in and out of the board are right there. I think they're some of the biggest ones. Some of them aren't listed, are technology related. But we had our playground that we finished, and the kids have been using that and wearing it out. We've had a lot of safety and security upgrades. Some you can see, some that aren't very evident, but they are there. We've had some major electrical upgrades in the building, keep it safe. We've had our heating and air conditioning units on the roof that can actually be regulated and save tens of thousands of dollars every year. And of course, the controversial central office. But so the 17 members on those boards of education all directed the hands and feet that stand in front of you to do all those things. Go ahead. So we have a levy on the ballot, and I get to always be, seems like, the deliverer of bad news. I get to tell everybody we need a tax increase. Anybody else want to deliver that news with me? I didn't think so, no. I have to answer to the person at home, which is my wife, who writes the checks and says, why are you putting a tax levy increase on the ballot? And go back. It is in response to this new law that came out in 2024, SB 727. You can look that up, SB 727, Missouri, and it's several pages long, but one section of that talks about new salaries for teachers, and that equals new costs for our district. Now hit it. So that levy increase is 50 cents, and it'll generate about $300,000. That's a high estimate for our salaries. Go ahead and hit it again. What is that raise and what it looks like? Well, right now we're sitting at $33,500, and the other marker, which is the master's plus 10 level, is $44,500. In 25-26, we need to move everyone to 40K and 46K, and then it keeps going up until you get past up to 28-29. It's CPI. That would be a 2.9% increase to the salary schedule base. So that law is written to kind of keep pace with inflation at some point. It's never really been written like that. And a lot of the teachers know that for a long time, the minimum salary was stuck at $25,000 for a teacher. And it's only recently that we saw this move up to 40. And one of the reasons I think it came out was because of the pandemic, and because some people know that the average salary for teachers in the state of Missouri was 50th out of 50 states. So we had something to not be proud of at all. And Governor Parson, for 3 years, provided a little boost to that. Every year says, well, can't you get a grant for that? And the answer to that is, there's been no grant that's been approved for that for this coming year. So what they tell us, and you can look it up yourself on DESE on the finance information, when they're talking about maybe there might be some help, and we might know by the end of June, is to have a contingency plan in place. Well, I don't know what that looks like, except what all the other districts are doing. Because our current board has voted 7-0, and they've reviewed this information twice and placed a levy on there twice. So these are the community members that you saw before that had placed this on the ballot twice. It's because they recognize the cost to do this is ongoing. It's salaries. And payroll is that yearly expense, and it generally increases from year to year. Go ahead. Let's do some assurances, though. This increase will be deposited directly into the teacher's fund. In fact, the ballot language is written there, and I can thank Derek Tuttle, one of our community members, who got out there and did some talking and said, people want to know that's exactly where it's going to go, Dr. Rob. And I said, well, let me check with the lawyer. I don't think I've ever seen one written that way. And I talked to a lawyer, and he said, I've never seen one written that way, but we could do it. And I said, well, let's do it. So they went back and they revised it. So it is directly into the teacher's fund, because we had some community feedback that said, well, it's going to operating, and you can put it anywhere. There's that trust factor again. That's fine. We'll tell them directly where it's going to go. So once it's deposited, it cannot be moved by law, and we are audited yearly, so you will know if that's done. Somebody will need to get fired if it does. You can check this action, because in August, and everything's kind of done backwards, we won't really know exactly what we can levy when we have that tax levy hearing that most people don't attend, but the board does. And they look at it, it will save 50 cents if this passes, and it will go into Fund 2, and Fund 2 is for teachers' salaries. Does that make sense? I hope so. Go ahead. So our low estimate to payroll, to be able to bring everybody to $40,000 and to be able to give a step increase for teachers year to year, would be about $238,000 right now if I had to figure it up. And I did that with our bookkeeper. Our operating levy is low compared to other schools our size and in our area. And a lot of people think, but I support the school. Absolutely. Tipton does support their schools. They absolutely do. I write the check right here and have ever since I've lived here from the first year I was here. And so does everybody else. We write our property tax check, and it's about 40% of what we bring in for our total budget. But if you look around, you can see what's happening. Cole Campus passed the 50-cent levy. These other districts were already high enough. Harrisburg, if you wanted to do a real apples to apples comparison, Harrisburg has about the same amount of wealth. That's assessed valuation that they draw on. They're taxing at their operating levy almost over $1 more. And that's a lot of money that they're bringing in that they can push into their salaries, about 25% more. Go ahead. SB 727 is now state law, so it's required. There's also a penalty for non-compliance. Sometimes women say, well, the state foisted this on us, they should pay for it all. I agree. They should. If they wrote the law, they should back it up, right? But they don't always do that. Because it's in real time, as tax money comes in throughout the year, they tell you what they're going to pay you. So in real time, they'll say, well, we know we promised you $6,700 a kid, but this month we took it down to $6,600. We're not quite sure we're going to have it all come in taxes. So it's in real time as this comes in through a fiscal year. It was just recently, a few weeks ago, that I learned they actually will honor what they promised at the beginning. So a budget, when you set it, is based on a lot of variables as it comes out. Go ahead. I surveyed 120 schools at the Missouri Association of Rural Education. About half of those schools that returned that survey said they're going to need to raise their operational levy, or they're going to need to make cutbacks based on this new law. We're in that pile. So we have a lot of hard cuts. We're not just trying to say, hey, let's just put all the bill on the community. What can we cut? Right now, we haven't had a choral music teacher this year. We've had a part-time teacher. Our business teacher, we're not going to rehire. We're going to We're going to absorb that position into some teachers that can fulfill those duties, maybe not all those duties, but most, that keep an FBLA program. We had an interventionist, and I heard Brant mention a while ago, he said, we get all this COVID money, you can do different things. At one point, we could have an interventionist that worked with kids, and it covered that. We don't have that COVID money any longer, so the interventionist will no longer be a position at our school. And then we're still looking at support staff. We're looking at a Title aid. We're seeing, does our title budget, and how many of you have heard that the Department of Education is kind of being scaled down quite a bit by the Trump administration? What does that actually mean? Title, is that federal money that comes in for reading, for intervention efforts? And will that be available like it has been in the past? Remains to be seen. We'll see. The title budget has to do that. Recent cuts, we cut back the FACS program and the teacher. We did get a preschool, not a full-fledged preschool, but a daycare out of that. We cut back a lunch clerk. We cut back an elementary teacher. We have a half counselor. We used to have 2 counselors because there was a lot of response in the community that they felt like they needed more help in the counseling department. Now we have 1.5, so that's a half counselor, half assistant administrator. We used to have a full-time assistant principal, so we combined those 2 positions. Okay, we're also looking at bus routes. We're going to 4 per day. That's about a $30,000 per year savings. That's an AM and PM route, and this will lead to longer route times. A lot of people ask, well, by law, you're taking federal money, how long do those route times need to be? I mean, what's the minimum they can be? There is no minimum. They can be as long as we set them. So it's about an hour or so for some of those routes. Go ahead. So where's our money? At the end of 24-25, we are not sitting in a bad spot. We have $2.7 million. We have that backup plan in case anything would happen. A lot of times they call it a rainy day fund for a school system. That's the unrestricted fund in Fund 1 and 2. That's the teacher's fund, the operational fund. It's going to be about 35% to 38%. I think we could edge up just a little bit if we haven't overspent. But we've had a lot of things come up lately, like fixing the walk-in cooler to the tune of, I believe that was about $12,000. To fixing the outdoor freezer last night, the board approved another $7,000 because it had to be resealed. We weren't going to be able to keep things frozen in anymore unless the roof was fixed on it and resealed. We don't have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem. And that is the truth. And every slide that I put up here is the truth. It's going to be hard to meet these demands of SB 727. It's going to be even harder when you hear things like this from the governor. Can you hit that link? Will that play over the speakers? Let's see if it would go. If it doesn't, that's okay. No internet? That's okay. There was a recent report that came out, and when the governor gave his State of the State address, he talked about we could see, we normally would have seen if they'd have honored the foundation formula, we would have seen several $100s more per child, which would have helped us meet this new law pretty easily. However, he's talking about freezing that. Well, when will we know? It'll be the end of June. That's when we'll know. That's when we'll know really what's going to happen. And honestly, we'll know in the middle of the school year how much it's going to be funded. So it's hard to know because you're always monitoring that month to month to see what is going to happen or what isn't going to happen. So I will end there, and I appreciate the support of our community. I appreciate the people that care about it and who want to come out and vote. And I think invariably anything that doesn't pass or does pass comes down to voter participation. It seems like when voters participate, things pass, and people do forget we did pass one bond issue during the last 8 years now. We did pass the one we needed. All right. That's all I've got. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Twenter is going to get part of my time because I thought a teacher's perspective would be interesting. And I did try to talk fast.
You did good.
Thank you, Dr. Rob. Dr. Rob asked me to come up here and speak to you guys today, and you'll find out real quick that that was probably a poor idea on his part because I'm not the most entertaining person in the world. But and this is weird for me because my wife and I, as just a point of our marriage, we don't put political signs in our yard. It doesn't matter. I guess if Jesus was running for governor, we'd probably put one out for him. But we influence kids for a living. Therefore, we try to remove ourselves from the political sphere. Our non-biological kids, our students. They come from everywhere and they have different opinions, and for their sakes, politics don't have any position in a classroom when you're trying to teach addition. But it's for those same students that I decided I would come speak tonight, because this levy is not really a political issue. It's a community issue, and quite frankly, our students deserve the quality of education that you and I were afforded growing up. One provided by knowledgeable and experienced teachers year after year. I grew up in a town very similar to Tipton. I had a love affair with this town ever since I was younger, similar to most of our board candidates today. I grew up in Pilot Grove, and when I was young, I was screened for special education services. It's kind of ironic that I'm giving a speech tonight because I had a speech impediment, and I still do. By the time I graduated, I had a 29 on my ACT and a full ride to the University of Missouri. I was not, however, in the top 25% of my class. That school was full of intelligent, ambitious, and dedicated people. We had a kid in my graduating class that went to medical school at Columbia. He's a MD now. That's Columbia University in New York. Two of my classmates are pharmacists, graduated from pharmacy school, the legal kind. One went to law school. I had 3 friends serve as officers in the military, and another is an executive for the largest lender in central Missouri. 3 of my classmates are business owners, and then there was me, the weirdo, who went back to high school as a teacher. At this time, this was normal for my school. It was an expectation of our community that that's what our school produced. It was the same here in Tipton. That's why I kind of had a love affair with this place. Our schools were going to produce the best. That was expected of the community. How did we do that? Well, as talented as my classmates were, we were led by an even more talented group of teachers. I had the same science teacher for all of my high school career. I had the same history teacher. I had the same math teacher, ag teacher, business, art, same principal, even had the same lunch ladies. They were dedicated to their craft. Combined, the high school staff of 9 had over 150 years of experience, most of them at the same school. They were consistent. We didn't have turnover because our salary was competitive with surrounding schools, even bigger schools like Boonville, Sedalia, and Columbia. It wasn't equal, but it was competitive. We had a high tax levy, and we still do. I called the school today. It's, what are we at, 2.6? Theirs is 4.6. To them, though, it's not an issue. They want those future doctors, lawyers, bankers, officers, teachers, and business owners graduating from that school and living in that community. I've lived in Tipton here for 7 years. I've taught in the district for 4. Both of my children have been born here. Our family's entire financial future is literally tied to this school district, which is another reason I don't get political. I get asked a lot why we moved here, and it's kind of funny because we moved here because people mow their lawns. Let me explain by what I mean by that. It's my observation that Tiptonites might not always have the biggest and most up-to-date house, car, lawn, etc. But what they do have, they take care of. They invest their hard-earned money into their community and care for the people who live here. Most lawn nuts are competitive, and so is this community. If they do something, they want to be the best at it. I think this community realizes that a $50,000 lawnmower is worthless to someone who doesn't know how to use it, or even worse, doesn't use it enough. I'll give you some more examples. We have an awesome girls basketball team. They won the state championship 3 years ago. Was it the gymnasium that lifted that trophy, or was it Coach Culpepper, his staff, and those girls who lifted that trophy? Football team made semifinals this year. Was it because of the actual weights they were lifting, or is it because those boys were in that weight room at 6 a.m. 3 times a week lifting those weights? When DECA, FBLA, and FFA teams win state championships, do we have the nicest, most up-to-date equipment, or do those advisors and students work harder than the rest of the state? Not just schools our own size, the rest of the state. Although nice facilities and equipment are needed and definitely help, a school's most valuable asset will always be the people within its walls. Not programs, not policies, not procedures or property, people. This town knows this, and we need to apply this same mentality to the education our children receive. If you look at the factors which influence student achievement, teacher quality is number one. In fact, teacher quality has twice the impact of any other factor. If we want our students to be the best, they need to receive the best education. And in order to receive the best education, we have to have the best teachers. How do we keep the best teachers? You pay them. The state has mandated that all schools can pay a teacher no less than $40,000 a year. The state has no plans to fund this mandate, and the governor has stated that he plans to freeze state public education funding. The only way forward for you to comply with this mandate is to raise taxes. I hate raising taxes as much as anybody, but if we do not raise taxes, what we'll have to do is we'll have to freeze our salary schedule at $40,000 a year, and you have somebody with 10 years of experience making the same amount of money as somebody with 1 year of experience. Tell me, if you're doing the job that you're doing now, and somebody 30 minutes down the road is going to offer you $10,000 more, would you stay? How can you expect a teacher at Tipton to stay if they won't get a raise for 5 years? If we hire a new basketball coach every year, do you think that they would consistently make it to the Final Four? To win at anything, you need dedication and consistency. How can you expect us to win in the classroom if we have a new teacher every year for those kids? In the 4 years I've taught at Tipton, I've seen approximately 30 teachers leave. They may leave for a variety of reasons, but only one teacher took a pay cut to teach somewhere else. Remember, the kids in that school are going to grow up to be your community's cops, your firefighters, your farmers, your store owners, and your government officials. Your property taxes that fund our school and our teachers are an investment in the quality of your life 10, 20, 30 years from now. I grew up in Pilot Grove, but Tipton is my home. Tipton is where I'll raise my children, where I'll see them graduate, where I'll see them get married. It's where I work, where I go to church, and where I'll retire. It's where I'll be buried. I want the people teaching my children to be the best. When they and their classmates graduate, I want them to be more qualified and more intelligent than children from other districts. I'm happy to pay another $100, $200, whatever it takes in taxes to make sure that the person that I ask for a mortgage at the bank can correctly calculate compound interest, or the first responder was taught how to properly perform CPR by a teacher and can save my life next time I do something stupid in my shop. I'm going to leave you with this. Before you vote on April 8th, you'll drive by that school parking lot several times. Take a look at the faculty lot. Every time you see a teacher's vehicle outside the hours of 7:30 to 3:30, remember they're not being paid to be there. You won't see employees at the bank or the grocery store after hours. That is the time that they are taking from their own children to give to the children of this community. Those teachers are completely invested in your kids, and by default, the future of this community. Those teachers want your kids, grandchildren, nieces, nephews to win at life. Do we not want to keep those teachers? Those competent and dedicated teachers are going to work somewhere. Why not hire those teachers here? You, the voter, will decide what our district is going to pay those teachers, but ultimately those teachers are going to tell you where they are going to teach. Do you want to try to catch those dedicated and competent teachers with $40,000 net, or do you want to let a school to the east catch them with a $50,000 one? As a teacher myself, I want to teach at a school that takes care of what they have, one that mows its lawn. Thank you.
Sir. Dr. Rob, great presentation as well. We're going to have that chance to come back and ask questions, but while it's still fresh, Dr. Rob, did you have something you wanted to say?
I think she's able to get the video up. You guys just want to see that real fast.
Wonderful, Kelsey, go ahead.
It's still very early in the budget-making process, but with a supermajority of Republicans across the legislature, Governor Mike Kehoe has a lot of support for his proposals. So when he proposes underfunding the K-12 education formula, he's likely to get what he asks for.
And our legislator and our governor should not be in the business of finding ways to shortchange the foundation formula.
About 30 miles west of Jefferson City, Dr. Terry Robinson oversees the Tipton R6 school district. But in a small town like Tipton, the public schools rely on state funding to serve the town, something they may be getting less of if the legislator sticks to the governor's proposed budget.
We're going to have to raise local taxes if the state is unwilling to fully fund the foundation formula.
Governor Mike Kehoe's proposed state budget is about $300 million short of fully funding the K-12 education foundation formula.
We really do need to address it. It's 20 years old. Funding schools in the future, we do need to modernize that, and I think we're going to do that.
Kehoe and Republican leadership say public schools are not performing.
But throwing more money at the problem is not the solution. We have invested over $4 billion in K-12 education, and we still aren't seeing acceptable results across the state.
And they're proposing rewriting the formula to make it more merit-based.
To underfund that is essentially not fulfilling the promise that past legislatures made. And I think it puts the legislature in a position where they could possibly not fund it in the future.
Matt Michelson with the Missouri State Teachers Association explains to me that the foundation formula is what schools use to fill in gaps for teacher pay, transportation, and other student needs.
If we're looking for ways to rewrite the foundation formula when it starts to help public schools, then what interests are we truly serving?
Lawmakers in the House and Senate are looking over budget requests right now. They will hold public hearings over the next couple of months where people for and against can speak. The budget has to be finalized on May 9th. Reporting in Jefferson City, I'm Hannah Falcon, Heartland News.
So you guys, $400 more per kid, yet he's proposing to freeze it and nothing will keep us right where we are. It would help us a lot, but like I said, May 9th, they're supposed to have it across his desk. We won't know until mid to late June. So that's why we've got this levy on there now, because we need to know. We need to have something to work with when it doesn't come through.
And I think the timing is good here. Folks, it's a small group, and I know a lot of time for questions. Is there anything just on the mind for folks right now that you'd just like to ask while the conversation is still fresh? It's a critical issue. I know my spouse is in the education field as well. She's a speech language pathologist and an entire career. And I know that those of you in education, this is critical for you, and for those with parents, it's critical for you as well. So I invite you to ask additional questions and engage your school board and superintendent as you guys make an educated decision on April 8th. So, all right, I think we're on for a bond issue discussion. So there's a team of people coming up. You guys will make your way to the front. There's a song and dance with you guys too, right? You can say whatever you want. Do you have a presentation?
I do not have anything.
Okay, go ahead and have a seat, and you guys are welcome to move about, take the podium, do cartwheels, whatever makes you comfortable. Pass the mics down.
We do have some paper here.
Okay, gentlemen, who's going to start?
Mark, you go ahead.
Okay.
All right. I just have a few talking points here that we could just kind of little housekeeping. So as you guys know, the Tipton R6 School District is seeking approval to issue a bond in the amount of $4 million. This is a no tax increase bond. So the adjusted debt service levy will remain at $1.08 per $100 of assessed valuation. Now, we always say it's a no tax increase bond, but we all know it is an extension of the debt service. So from the day we pass the bond, we'll have 20 years when we will pay it off. So there will be an extension. You will be paying your taxes longer, but I will just say this also. Yes, we could retire our debt, Dr. Rob, I don't know, in 8 years, 12 years, somewhere around there. But, and then if that debt ever gets retired, then that debt tax service levy goes away. And then we're going to have to try to get another one on there, because if we don't have anything, if we're not improving our schools through these bonds, then we're going to not have a school in the future. So why is this building essential? And I think Mr. Twenter, Mrs. Twenter, you guys just gave a great speech on why we're so lucky for our kids to have you in our ag program and our FFA program, you're completely correct. It is all about the teachers and the students inside that building. But so why would we even need a new building? Well, this new facility, it can expand opportunities for our children, for our students to engage in a variety of physical education and extracurricular activities that foster skills such as teamwork, leadership, and discipline. It gives us a space for our coaches and our teachers to reinforce those values of teamwork and leadership that will help them in the classroom and in the future. The multi-purpose building will provide space needed for competitive teams. And we say baseball, basketball, volleyball, golf, weightlifting. But that's not just what this building is about. It's not just about taking all these teams and putting them in that building, right? It increases the amount of space we have for our kids. So I don't know how many people go to, say, a TRA 3rd and 4th grade game on a Saturday morning in the elementary school. That stage space that should be dedicated to those kids for performances, whether it be choir or band or anything like that, is taken up with storage for wrestling mats, archery targets, all sorts of things that shouldn't be there. We need a dedicated space for them so we can have that space that was originally built be used for its intended purposes. How will this building help meet the needs? Well, I did also, when we talked about the Senate bill that passed last year, we have a House bill going through right now, House Bill 711, that passed. It's gaining stronger support. This is the 4th time, I believe, that bill has passed in the House. It's never come to a vote in the Senate yet. But this year, I believe it will. It passed soon enough. They're on break right now. When they come back, they're probably going to take it up. And with that House Bill 711, that's, for lack of a better word, it's school choice, where parents can move their kids around. And that is a concern, I believe, for this district, because part of our state funding formula is average daily attendance. That's what Dr. Al was talking about. And we need to keep our kids in our classrooms, in our district. And as sad as it is, there's a facilities race. California, I don't know if anybody watched KRCG last night. At 10, California had probably about a 3 or 4 minute segment over their bond issue, their $8 million bond issue that they are running this April. That's pretty much all I have, other than just to kind of do the housekeeping things on it. I'll let Mark and Coach Duke win hearts and minds.
Whenever, usually on this candidate forum, it's kind of like when I thought initially that it would be, when I put name on the ballot to be the mayor, well, I was thinking of things that, what would I say, as far as from the city of Tipton standpoint. But then I know that we didn't have anybody who was in non-contested election. So, but then I ended up getting an invitation on this part of it. But what I would say is pretty much would dovetail into it, because one of those proudest moments that I had as the mayor was this past year was whenever the auditor came back. And after they did our financials, they said that the net position of the city in Tipton increased by over $1 million. It increased by $1 million not because we took all of the tax money that people gave us and just put it into a savings account, or we kept it from you. The net value of Tipton increased because we invested it back into you. We acquired property. We built your new community center. We invested into our public works. We invested into new playgrounds. What I'm getting at on this is that at some point in time, this community has to understand that we have to invest back into the school. That will increase the value that we have. Whether it's this issue, I can think of a prime example. In 2018, one of the first things that these people come up with, or one of the first bond issues that I remember, was for a track. Okay, for some reason, whatever, the community didn't get passed. The board didn't secure enough support for it, okay? The track at that school did not get any better over the past 8 years, okay? But if you were to go and maybe the next board would come along and say, hey, we'd like to replace that track. When they open the bids for that, I'm sure they would love to look at the amount of that 2018 bid, and they would take that one. It is not conservative to kick cans down the road. If you keep pushing things off, it's just going to keep getting more and more expensive to do, to the point where you're at, if anything, just at your own home. If you never invested back into it, at some point in time, everything is going to come onto you at once, and you will not be able to finance it.
I'm not real good at sitting down.
Okay, then you guys have my mic with you.
I usually don't use microphones either.
Okay, I know.
To be completely honest, I could spend an hour talking to you about this bond issue. Didn't grow up here, but I choose to call it my home. So much to the tune that halfway through the season, right before a football game, Coach Culpepper was coming to me and asking me, who's the starters that we need to announce? I said, Coach, can I have a minute? He's like, yeah, sure, what's up? And I said, I want to coach here for a really long time. That's what I want to do. I know you want to announce the starters in like 15 minutes, but look around. I want to be here for a long, long time. I was coaching football on a September night, and I stopped, and it caught me because on the hill was youth football practicing, youth cheerleading, high school cheerleading, middle school football, high school football. There was like 200 people at our complex out there helping and advancing the youth and participating in just a couple of activities. It was such a cool moment for me that when Rod came to interview me for a football game, that's what I talked about. Not what we were going to do offensively or defensively, but the community involvement and the care and consideration that people showed. You're absolutely right. People care in this town, a tremendous amount. They do. You go to any auction or any benefit, and it steps right up. It never fails. So in January of 2024, I started talking to people and asking why. I'm not from Tipton. I want to know why. Why do we struggle with certain things? I spent over 100 hours of my life talking to people one-on-one. Many of you are in this room. I sat down and talked with whatever time you needed. I heard problems about so many different things. You know one thing that I never heard a problem about? Kids. Nobody ever said the kids don't care. It was a problem from adult to adult that was negatively impacting the kids in our school district from getting facilities or getting other things. It was a problem from one adult to an adult who isn't even here anymore. Just by asking why. 4 years ago when I got here, we started off-season weights. Kids looked at me like I was crazy. That first year, there was 8 kids on average in the weight room in the morning. 8. That was hard for me coming from schools where the participation level was so high. Now there's over 60 kids in the morning. 60. Wednesday and Friday mornings at 6 a.m. on time, not late, on time. Most don't drive, which means their parents have to bring them. On Sunday night, sometimes there's over 70 kids. You drive by this Sunday night and you'll see them outside on the field. The kids that we have here, the students that we have here, want to do great things. And you're absolutely right. You don't need nice things to win. We don't need bright, shiny things to win. But you should support what kids love and what they're showing interest in. That's what you should do. And you're right, there's a facilities race. There's multiple schools around the area that have better facilities. Multiple. And they're going to continue. And if open enrollment passes, you can lose up to 3% of your students per year. The cost of those 3% I'm not great at math in public all the time, but I'm thinking it's probably somewhere around $120,000 to $130,000 of revenue. The pictures of the building behind you don't just help football. They help every single activity, every single one. So when the last bond issue came through for the football field, it was, well, that's just for football. When in truth, it wasn't. It was a classroom. It's APPE, and there's a test every Friday night, or there's a track meet, and there's a test during the track meet, and you come to watch and support that. This benefits every single person. It doesn't raise your taxes. I've challenged multiple people on our Facebook page. Come tell me why that we don't do these things. Tell me why our kids don't deserve it. Because when I go back to look at it, out of all those hours of conversations I had, it was a problem between one adult and another. One adult and another showing unfair pride, envy, jealousy, pick whatever term you want to use. Some of them are on the list for the 7 that you shouldn't, that we stopped growth. Why would you stop growth when kids want to do something? And if you're going to make an error, make it on the side of kids. Now, the Fisher family has donated some money, generously donated a significant amount of money. The building can be built. You'd have another full-size gym. You'd have an area for band and archery. You'd have coaches. Look, my coaching salary does not pay the bills, right? I mean, let's just be honest. You'd have coaches who could get home to their families at a better time. We're not talking about a new problem. This problem has been around for decades. People 20, 30 years ago were still practicing at 5:30 in the morning because they didn't have space. I'm sure I could ask you to raise your hand if you've ever driven your child to a practice at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and it'd probably be true. You probably have. How much would that have been better if you had breakfast with your child that morning and asked them about their day, what was going to happen, because you missed it the night before because you were out? You can't get that time back. It's a no tax increase bond issue that puts you in a position to be successful, which is what you're asking the students of Tipton to be, successful. Again, I could talk about this for a long, long time. It seems like a no-brainer to me. But if you don't believe it, defend your position. We ask kids to defend their answers in class. Where did you get it? As adults, how about we do what's right for kids? And maybe that gets me in trouble. I'm okay with that. But if you're going to make an error, make it on the side of kids. The operating levy helps kids because it helps teachers. The bond issue helps kids, helps parents. When have you been in a situation where you can have such a positive impact on so many people with one single vote? Appreciate you.
Good.
All right, nice job, guys. The one thing that we all know living in rural America is this discussion about reinvestment in our communities and what draws people to our communities is critical. And there's across the country these discussions are happening, and we're in a time, and we talk about this around the country, where people are choosing to move back to rural America for a lot of reasons. And when we think about kids that have left, when they left a generation ago, let's just call it, they left for better jobs, and we have a different situation now. We've got jobs that can be great jobs that can be had out in rural America. And so when we talk about this stuff, again, educating yourself and making a good decision based on, of course, taxes and what we want for our community and what we want for our schools is critical. And I'm curious, and we'll come back for questions, but with the bond issue, I don't live here, but I work here. Tell us a little bit, for those maybe that aren't quite educated, what is going to be involved with this facility? And you talked about the Fisher family. Just talk about what opportunity exists maybe today that maybe won't exist because of that. Can you give us a little bit more detail on it?
You want to start?
You can go ahead.
The current structure of the building is 100 by 140. It includes a full-size basketball court. As you know, we don't have 2 full-size courts. We have one full-size court and one that is much smaller. Makes it very difficult. It involves a turfed area where multiple uses can occur. Archery is one. Wrestling mats can be put down. Currently, wrestling has no solidified home. They are in the cafeteria rolling their mats up day in and day out, and being in the cafeteria just doesn't seem like the best place to be for a wrestling mat, to be honest with you. It involves a new weight room. Currently, our weight room, because of the participation that we have, is unsafe. It's too many kids in there at one time. That's a great problem to have. You have so much participation. Currently at Tipton, if you include ag, over 90% of our students are involved in extracurricular activities. 90%. Take out ag, it's still over 80%. Over 80% of our students do something else and are involved in a space. So our weight room is too small. Now some people might say, well, just coach, run another session. It's not possible. We're already there. We're just asking for more time to do something in a space that we can't operate in. They'll say, well, why does it matter? Well, a divided team doesn't succeed. You want them together. The shared sweat equity creates a bond that you can't get in other places. The full-size basketball court can also be used for a wrestling area. There's some storage potential in there. Who here would like more storage in the school? If you're a sport coach and you haven't stored stuff at your house, I'd be surprised, because I know, because I've talked to all of them and they do. There's also an area for any other activity that you want to practice. There's great pictures back there. But within that space, and we worked a long time working at many iterations of this to make it so that everybody can be there. It's in a space where construction would not negatively impact the school because it's far enough away. It's in a space where there's a parking lot already available, so people can get to that space. Currently, our district facilities are booked from like 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day. And people are clamoring to get in, and people are told no. When you tell them no, they're going to go somewhere else. Where would you want the kids of the district to be? In our district. You'd want them to spend time there. When you look at other school districts our size, they have spaces like this. They have facilities that they're continuing to improve. And I agree with you, pay off the bond issue. Pay off your bonds. Well, the school district buildings are going to need upkeep, and they're going to need money to keep those things up. Look at your house. How much do you spend on your house on a yearly basis? Now, it sounds weird, but just imagine there's 524 kids or so, K through 12. Every one of those kids is going to go use the bathroom every day, twice a day. Those facilities are going to get wore out. Every one of those kids is going to open a door. Those doors are going to get wore out. Every one of those kids is going to walk across the floor. The floor is going to get wore out. Things get wore out in a school. They need to be kept up, and they're going to need to be replaced at some point. The HVAC needs to be replaced at some point. Those are all things that you've addressed. There are 3 parts to the school, right? Curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular. With over 90% of our kids involved in something that just isn't curricular, we should support that and feed it. So yes, there was a generous donation by the Fisher family. There's also been generous pledges by other people in the community to help make this a facility that would last for decades and eliminate decades long of problems. What problem would it not eliminate? Oh, how many times have you practiced late at night with your basketball teams because there was no other gym available? How many times have you seen parents driving their kids somewhere at 5:30 in the morning, or you've driven them there for basketball practice or for softball practice or for baseball practice? Currently, baseball hits in the elementary gym. A baseball is white. The walls are kind of white. How hard do you think it is to see that baseball? It's also not a great idea to be hitting baseballs off the gym floor. How long is that gym floor going to last, right? So you provide facilities to the students and the families who have chosen to make this their home. Those same families who pay their taxes. It's my opinion, I could be off, but it's the fiduciary responsibility of the school board to spend the money on the students after you collect their tax dollars. Right, wrong, or indifferent, the school is not a bank. You're here to spend money on your students. And we have the ability to improve not only the students, but the parents and the families. Plus, you want to be attractive to people who are looking at Tipton. How many other school districts you drive right down the highway and you're going to see that right now? That's the first thing you're going to see. My grandmother always said, keep the outside looking nice, keep them guessing about the inside, right? Cut their grass, looks nice. What's the other stuff look like, right? It brings them into the building. And in a time when people get more and more choices, give them a reason not to say no to Tipton. When they drive by, make them stop.
Very good. Did you gentlemen have any more comments? Again, voters, just educate yourself. These are critical decisions for the community, and I really appreciate the time you've all spent up here discussing it. We're going to take a short break, and there are restrooms out the back door, and there's restrooms out the side door. And Kelsey's been putting out some delicious looking cookies in the back, and some water, and some mixes at home. It is 7:45. Let's take a break for 15 minutes. If you have questions, please bring them over to the table. We'll sort them and kind of group them into likes. We'll have the board members, when we start, come back to the board candidates. And then Mr. Lutz will have a presentation at the conclusion to wrap us up. So thank you. Enjoy. Grab a cookie or two. Because we're going to stuff them in your pockets on the way out the door if you don't eat them before we get out of here. All right. So we have some questions for you folks. I think you'll enjoy them. They're not hard, and there's essentially two different questions. And I'm going to start. I'm going to start with you, Bill. And this question is going to extend on to the other three candidates as well. But for Bo, the question in particular was, what are your accomplishments as a school board member?
Oh, great. Okay. I think probably you think back to some of the different things that we've done. I think we've hired some good folks. I think, preparing for where we are now from a financial standpoint, we've been looking at some uncertainty there. Dr. Rob talked about the fund balance, and that has been necessary, try to think through and be able to adapt to some of this stuff as it's coming forward. We've been looking at this for this potential and what's coming at us for a little while. From an accomplishment standpoint, probably one of the thing I'm most proud of. I was really a big proponent of the security upgrades. We had some necessary needs, obviously, on the HVAC side, but when you kind of look across, what was that, a couple years ago when all that stuff was done? Things have not gotten better nationally, and I don't think Tipton is a place that would that we could say we're safe from the things that have happened in other places. So I think from a facility standpoint, that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of, is putting those things in place just so that we could, better prepare or fortify ourselves against some sort of issue that may occur.
Very good. Thank you. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to go on down the line to make it easy, but the question's slightly different for the other three. What would you do, or what would you like to see accomplished in your first term if you were elected?
Well, definitely these bonds passed. Hopefully that'll be taken care of before I get there. Just greater community outreach and greater transparency, and try to regain the trust of the citizens of Tipton. And like on these bond issues, I've just asked, try to get people to put aside their grievances in the past, whether it be, I've heard about the gym in the elementary. Why was it built so small? Or, the administration building, somebody wasn't happy with that, or, just tons of different arguments. I would just ask people to look at what's going on now on the face of what it is now, and put aside what was done in the past. Because it doesn't matter that elementary school gym is tiny and kind of ridiculous, but that doesn't have anything to do with this bond issue now. So I would just ask people and try to convince people to look at what we're trying to do now And if you approve of what we're trying to do now or what the board now is trying to do, then vote yes for it. And in the future, anything that we're trying to do, to look at what we're doing, not judge some things that you might think have some past grievances on.
Okay, very good. How about you? What would you like to accomplish in your first term?
In my first term, I would like to make teacher pay a priority. Just speaking firsthand as a classroom teacher, if you don't feel appreciated as a classroom teacher, you don't feel competent to do your job. And I think Mr. Twenter kind of nailed it on the head earlier. Most people don't know this about me, but whenever I came to Tipton as a sophomore in high school, what brought me to Tipton was I lost a sibling in what at the time was a pretty national and highly publicized event. And at that time, I was just like lost and broken. And I lived on my own my junior and senior year. And the teachers at the time would literally put lunch money in my account. They buy my basketball shoes, would do those things for me. And, you know, last year, my daughter, Janie, she's sitting right back there. She was playing soccer, and one of her teachers, her kindergarten teacher, came on a Saturday. She doesn't have any kids playing. She was there with a thing of donuts, and ironically, they're just handing those out to the kids, and it just made their day. And ironically, it was right after their bond, their teacher raise had been denied. And it's like, you know, like she's literally making, you know, pennies, and she's spending her Saturday coming to show up at my kid's sporting event. So that would be number one priority. And then, like I said, this other thing that has obviously been brought up over and over again is the buildings and the bonds. And just, I think, like we've been saying, it's a lack of transparency. People just don't feel like they have the buy-in. And, you know, one thing that I feel like could definitely help with that is like some type of survey, get the community, you know, hear what their concerns are, and how can we as the board and stakeholders remedy that.
Thank you. Sir, how about you? Your first term.
There's two things that I want to accomplish. I've actually thought about this a lot. One is to have transparency through easy, attainable graphs, you know, through our funding models. These can be put out, all the information is public knowledge, but people don't like to shuffle through things. So if we had links on our school website where people could dig into the data, quickly see bar graphs, charts, whatever you want to call it, it'd be easy and attainable to see, hey, we are you know, we're utilized 33% of our school year funding. However, we're already 40% through the school year. You know, they could get a grasp of how we're doing. We can give ourselves as a board and the school district leadership can give ourselves a grade and make that public to show how we're doing. Also, we could there put, hey, we did have to overspend due to this, but we're planning on making up for that coming up in the next couple of months with savings through here. You know, Dr. Rob's brought up points about saving money on our buses through using the facilities that we already own back to Durham. And so our costs are less. Not a lot of people, I think, have resonated that thought, or, you know, he said it multiple times, but they haven't realized it. And I think if it's published and it's known and shown easily where people can go, even if someone that isn't very good with technology can go and click on something and see a few things, it would be good. Just give ourselves a grade card. That would kind of be the number one thing I would like to see happen. Other than that, I would like to set up some sort of incentive plan for teachers to actually go out and submit grants. If there was a way that we could, within the law, of course, through some sort of funding or incentives, if the teacher goes out and writes a grant for their classroom and they get all new computers or they get all new textbooks or whatever that grant may be, because there's so many of them out there. If they had a benefit for taking their own time to do that, because they don't have time during the day to do that, so they'd have to be doing that on their own time. We should incentivize those people that are going above and beyond for being star performers, for doing what they can, because every time they do something like that, that helps us with our budget. It helps save money. And if they're saving money here, we can use it somewhere else. So So I think we should incentivize.
Very good, thank you. All right, we've got 3 other cards here that are on similar topics, and they all talk about school choice. And there's one in particular here that caught my attention, so I'm going to read it. But just know that the others are the same theme, and what we'll do is we'll start with you on the end, and we'll come back this way and finish with Bo. It is such a great time to be at Tipton. So many positive things happening. With the concern of open enrollment, where do you see Tipton in 3 to 5 years? And I will tell you that there are 2 other cards here with similar questions, but they talk about school choice. So stay within that realm. Where do you see Tipton in 3 to 5 years, keeping in mind school choice, open enrollment, and all the things that go along with that? Sir?
To be honest with you, I don't see Tipton suffering too much from school choice because there are people that value their time. If I were to take my kids to California, that would cost me roughly $4 a day in fuel. It would also take me 45 minutes of my day. Time is valuable to people. They want their time back. Some people do not want to put forth the effort to drive that far. I don't see it changing a whole lot. I do want to challenge people to say, oh yeah, it's real easy to go to California or somewhere. But it's also, to me, if it would cost my family $225 for the tax levy to pass, $225 doesn't go very far when I'm driving back and forth to California 5 days a week. Even if I am setting up some sort of carpool, the amount of time it would take. You know, you would be eating up roughly 3 hours and 45 minutes of your week just driving back and forth to kids to school. And that is if they're not involved in anything extracurricular. So there is things that people need to think about. Why not invest in our local community when we can have those things? We can do it here, and it's going to cost you less by doing it here.
Thank you, sir.
So I agree with Brant a little bit in the aspect of that it's going to take commitment from anybody who wants to leave their district or leave wherever they're at to come to Tipton. So it's a double-edged sword. You can look at it, it can be a negative and you can lose kids to other schools, but you could also, most kids that are going to come from other districts, they're going to come from families that have the resources to make that happen because, like you said, it's not convenient to do it. But also, with that being said, the lack of facilities and the lack of space, that's a massive concern when it comes to an issue like that. If you don't have those things, then you are going to lose the kids. So, you know, staying on top of that, maintaining that line of communication with the community and that transparency with them is going to be key to making sure that we stay in a good position, we stay competitive, and that I know that and making sure that our teachers don't have to work as hard, not as hard, but they shouldn't always have to do more work. Like if there's anything we can do as a board in a community to make their jobs easier, that's what we should be doing. I see that, I do that with my job now, and that's one of the things that would have made a total difference, a total game changer for me as an educator. Somebody to do the little things to make my life easier so that I could focus strictly on educating my children. Because as a teacher, if I'm less stressed, my students are less stressed.
Thank you. Okay, with, again, concern of open enrollment, where do you see Tipton in 3 to 5 years?
I don't see too much concern with open enrollment. I don't think we'll lose too many people for that. But as far as seeing Tipton in 4 years, it depends. Like if we keep going down the road we're going, of being unable to pass any kind of bond and retain teachers, I don't see us doing so well. Because not only is it about the kids we have here or losing kids because of school choice, with more remote work, with better roads like here in Jeff, here in Columbia, here in Sedalia, we're trying to attract new people into the community, let alone just losing them. You know, we need to focus on gaining new people, getting people to move here rather than just losing. The school will probably be okay in itself because we have great parents. The people in the town are great. We have great parents, we have great teachers. All the parents are always heavily involved, so we'll get stuff done. But if we don't come together as a community and get these bonds passed and these teachers retained, it's just going to make it harder on everybody, and we're going to stay stagnant. And if you're stagnant, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, it's not good.
Thank you, sir.
I guess I'm the pessimist. I think it is the reason why I'm running for the board, one of the main reasons. But I think the next 3 to 5 years are going to be vitally important for schools, particularly rural schools in Missouri. I think that personally, I believe that you're going to see a lot of consolidation between that 3 to 5 year mark, and I think that the state knows that. I feel like Tipton is in a good spot because we're bigger than some of the smaller districts, and we have a pretty good location from a commuting standpoint. But what these folks said over here is correct. I mean, we're going to be in competition for those kids. School choice, we can either attract people to us and grow our numbers. That'll be a positive for us. Or if we don't have good teachers, if we don't have good facilities, then we are going to lose those folks. Tipton's unique. I mean, we do have people that, it would, if I worked in Tipton, I don't know if I want to drive to California to take my kids to school, but I work in Columbia and I could take my kid there. We have a lot of people that work in Jeff City that could take their kid to Helias. There's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong if bad decisions are made right now. So, and that's again part of the reason why I wanted to run for the board, is because I think that the decisions made now are going to impact our district for the next 10, 15 years.
Very good. To all you candidates, thank you. Thank you for putting yourselves out there and running. Obviously, the community has some great choices to make. And that's all I have for original questions from you. I don't know if there's anything out in the audience that got missed from questions for the candidates. If not, let's give them a round of applause. All right. Before you get up, I don't have any questions on the presentation for Dr. Robinson or the presentation regarding the bond issue. But Dr. Robinson, I do have a question for you. This seems like a complicated superintendent question. So if you grab a microphone up here, it's probably not complicated for you, but I'm going to say quite complicated for me to get the question right. Dr. Rob, SB 727 has a financial incentive for schools with a calendar of 169 days. According to DESE, Tipton would receive $20,222 each year. In year 3, that number would increase to over $40,000 and remain at that level. Those funds must be spent on teacher pay. Given our school's deficit spending and the outcome of an election is uncertain, why did you recommend a calendar of 162 days and forgo this incentive? If implemented in 4 years, it would bring in over $120,000 that must go to teacher pay. Again, more appropriate for superintendent. Yes, sir.
Because we would probably have more expenses to stay open 9 more days, or 161, not 162. So if you go, 8 more days. You go in 8 more days, so you have 8 more days of transportation. You have 8 more days just keeping the lights on. And your teachers who have been under contract now for 161, they're going to work 8 more days. Plus your hourly people are going to work 8 more days. So at 20,000, it's pretty close to a wash. Now, in a year or two, I can't remember which year that goes into effect, it will increase to 40,000. So we'll do the math again and see if it actually makes sense to add 8 more days. If you talk to a lot of the superintendents in districts our size, they're looking at it as dollars and cents. We're not really making any money at $20,000. That's why. We're just operating longer. We're operating another 8 days. So there you go. And right now, if you do that maximum 169 days, you're making up every single day. You could extend your school year. You are eating into the breaks that you already have. We talk a lot about keeping teachers happy and doing things that make them want to stay in a place. I challenge anybody to talk to any of our teachers and ask them if they want to make up their snow days or if they want them built in. If they want to have a good spring break or regular breaks, or if they'd like to be giving them up for snow days. So there's a climate and culture piece that figures into that as well. And I am not, if it was $100,000, I think we'd be having a different conversation. But it's not. That's why. If anybody who wrote this question wants to ask me anything further about it, I'm glad to show it to them. Looks like they looked it up, though. That's pretty accurate.
School funding is not an easy subject, is it?
No.
And thanks for opening us out with that. So
Now, there's some districts who are playing that and saying, well, we're doing this because it's such a financial incentive for us. Well, it might be, depending on what their operating costs are, what it's costing them. So I don't see it as doing anything but costing us more money, or at best, it might break even. But you're also giving up the stability of your schedule too. And if you talk to your teachers, they've been pretty happy with their schedule, and we're trying to retain them. The increase in 4-day weeks, we had that discussion earlier, like in November, December. And we talked about that for a while. And we put that survey out there and got the feedback from the community. They really weren't for that. And the board was listening, I think, and I was listening. And the teachers were a little bit for it, a little bit against it. There wasn't really an overwhelming number saying, let's go, let's go. But when they realized that they would be making up those days, when they realized that it would cause some fluctuations in their schedule, and they realized that the day might be longer, and they also realized that the year might extend longer. All those things happen with a 4-day week. A lot of schools have jumped to a 4-day week for one simple reason. They think that attracts teachers to bring them in, candidates, because they're having trouble because all the schools around them have gone 4-day week. So they have that trouble. We're kind of in that zone that we have a hybridized schedule. We have about 16 or 17 weeks that are not even 5 days. So we're kind of hybridized. And we did not prioritize, what they prioritize is, let's just be 4-day week. That's the priority. Only work 4 days a week. That's not the priority here when we built our schedule. The priority we did was to have regular professional development throughout the year, almost once a month, and to also give our teachers some climate and culture pieces, giving them regular breaks, but it's also for families too, because the families want those breaks, and they don't want their snow days chewing up their breaks either. At least that's what families tell me. And the reason we put that survey out is to discover that for ourselves, to see what do people really want. So that's why we recommended that schedule.
Thank you for the explanation.
Oh, I mean, there was one thing else I was wanting to. Do you find, like, I mean, I know you said that we're talking about catering to whatever the educator, you know, you're retaining the teacher. A couple of board meetings ago, you was talking about your scores that you received from the state. Your words were, we've pretty much done everything that we can do administratively wise. It's going to have to come from the academics to continue increasing. A child that goes 169 unique days, K through 8, will receive almost 3 months worth of in-class or in-day instruction by the time they reach their freshman year. Do you feel that the balance of, I mean, do you understand what the question about as far as like is focusing on
I think
the
if you have good teachers, your number one factor is to have good teachers here, no matter how many number of days you have. We're allowed to retain teachers. If you're looking at that schedule as a retention piece, so a lot of people are. There's schools that are going 4 days a week and doing absolutely fine academically. We have a lot of students with high needs as well. So a happy medium is to be right there in the middle instead of being 4-day week or going all the way to 169, which the state has kind of arbitrarily thrown that out there and then dangled a small carrot at us. We may need to go more school days. I don't disagree with you if we think that more instruction will help them. But you also have to remember, we also offer summer school. So our teachers are actually almost working another month anyway. These kids that want to come, we have pretty full summer school too. Almost the whole elementary fills back up and every kid that wants to come back. We also have intervention for all those students that don't pass their classes in January as well as in June. So they come back and actually complete their courses if they fail them. So we're doing a lot of intervention pieces to kind of balance it out. I don't know that 8 days solves any kind of academic problem. You tack it onto an end of the school year.
It's just one of those, it seems to, like, I know that they do the school calendar and stuff where it's almost like on these hours based, where they say, oh, then we'll go 15 minutes early and we'll stay 15 minutes late. But like all of our successful athletic programs, Coach Culpepper or Coach Duke doesn't go to his team and says, well, Misha says we can start on January 1st. Don't worry, we'll start on January 8th. Don't worry, team, we'll go 15 minutes earlier and 15 minutes later.
the time.
I think the bigger push, Mark, and the better thing that we did was we moved away from 10 block and we honed down on some of the core areas, the core subject areas we need to teach. And we gained almost 40% more instructional time just from going to a 7th period day and not having so many electives that are untested. And if we keep looking at our APR from the lens of saying, well, we need to chase test scores, we're chasing the wrong thing. We just are. We're chasing the wrong thing. Because I look at the end results and last year's graduating class raking in over $1 million in scholarships and getting where they want to go. So I'm not seeing a plethora of kids who are not learning and who aren't challenged, who aren't successful in everything from ag to DECA to business. But I am seeing an entirely new scoring guide that will be difficult for us because it keeps hinging a lot on test scores and an algorithm developed at Mizzou that basically tries to tell us whether they grew enough between 3rd and 5th grade, and that no superintendent that I can find in the state can explain to you because they don't explain it very well. Because they're trying to make a prediction of how much that kid should have grown in English from 3rd to 5th grade, and I've hounded them, and all it is a Mizzou White Tower type of analysis that goes on, trying to tell you, well, we don't think they grew quite enough, based on what you are as a school influencing them. But I can see the end results, and when we get 100% on college and career ready, on that indicator, I like that one better than any of them.
I appreciate it. I mean, how do I say?
It's not a bad point. I see what you're saying.
We always, as a small community, we have to rely on grants and things that come in extra. We have to chase it's like, you have to chase every dollar that's available. And when I read that, my gosh, I've heard it from California. California was taking advantage of it.
I'd like to see what California's operating costs are on what they're taking advantage of, or they're just throwing it on there, because I've had some discussions with them too.
So the point what I was saying, I appreciate the answer, it's just the regulation. Just from the outside, I was like, well, why don't we?
That is the way it's being pushed out there.
Whenever it's there.
It's being pushed out there as some kind of balloon, and it's not.
These are great questions. And I tell you what, it's wonderful in a community like this to get this out. And school board members, potential school board members, a lot to talk about in the future years. There's a lot going on with this. Dr. Rob, thank you. Thank you. All right, we don't have any additional questions for you guys. If you guys would like to find a seat, and Commissioner Lutz, we got you on deck. Do you have a presentation?
Well, yep, right up here.
Okay.
Ready to go.
There you are, sir.
Will you put the mic back up on the?
Yep. There you go. Here, let me grab this stuff off of here because I've got a mess up here. Pieces of paper everywhere. All right, have at it.
Hi, folks. Joe Lutz, I'm your presiding commissioner. We have Senate Bill 190 on the ballot in April. It's basically just a up or down vote by the public. The commission has to enact it. We don't need the vote. We could do it without it, but we've had people on both sides, so a lot of counties are putting it on the ballot, and then you're saying, hey, it passed, which I think every other county it's been on, it has passed. This is a freeze. If you're 62 and over, you'll take your deed in. If it passes, we will have some workshops, some area they can come in, a notary. You'll label it, and then depending on how you look, and again, this is one of the worst pieces of legislation I've ever seen. You know, it's terrible. They got together and said, hey, we're going to give all of you old people taxes relief on there. Oh, and by the way, we're going to leave it to all of the counties that you on the commission, you're the ones that have to enact this. So they get to say, oh, we did it, but we don't actually have to do anything to do it. So you have people, are sitting here the minute after, they think they're not going to pay any taxes. They think it's their farm, it's everything. It's not. It's your house and a couple of acres. That's what it covers. So it's been, and you're not going to see much tax relief, the first several years. So it's an ugly bill that they passed. They passed a second one to clear it up. It's done a little better. But in 2 years, the majority of our meeting times at our association meetings, et cetera, has been over how do we implement this. So it's been a real nightmare. And in general, and you're in politics, whether you're in the city, or if you pass a law, you never write it. You get somebody else's that's already passed the test of is it legal or not, and you enact that law because it avoids what's happened with the Senate Bill 190. There's just all of these. It would be similar to saying, we're going to pass a law to clean up all the junk in town. Well, that sounds nice. What's junk? His junk isn't your junk, vice versa. And that's what happens when they pass these. So it will be on there. If it passes, we will get it on there. We'll get the applications. We'll set it up, and we'll take care of it. One thing you learn as you're at the county and you start processing things, lately, a lot of counties, their assessors have been getting orders from the state to up their assessments on all of the property by 14.99% because they're undervaluing property. No assessor wants to assess your property for what it's worth because they won't get reelected. So everybody keeps it low. Talked to my insurance guy, said, why is my house insurance went up so much? Well, we're not insuring a $140,000 house anymore. We're insuring a $250,000 house. So we obviously can't do it on the $700 you were paying 10 years ago. You haven't had a claim, you haven't had anything. But if your house burns, it's going to cost us twice as much to replace it. Yet, if you look at your property taxes, your real estate, your house has doubled in value, but your property tax rate has not went up. It stayed relatively flat or went up a couple of percent. So that's an issue. You have schools, 40% of their funding is local, and it's not much higher than it was 20 years ago. We have issues in here. We had, and everybody talks. We've got jobs everywhere. The candle factory, they're up to 60 some. Martin Energy, ABB, Kawasaki. There's jobs galore. There's no housing. That's an issue that we face here. Mike Kelly, myself, we're started out with childcare. We had those meetings out here. We've made a dent in that. But every single person that you deal with at the county level as commissioners, whatever, everybody has the same issues. There's no housing anywhere. If somebody's got the magic bullet on how to do that, let me know. You'll be rich if you can figure that out, because that's the issue everybody has. There's plenty of jobs, but there is no housing for anybody running around. So those are just some of the issues that you're running into at the county level. And at the city, I can tell you right now, the first time around in the 90s, you could have dumped that building upside down. You wouldn't have come up with enough money to go to the movies. Every penny that came in was spent. Now the city has a cushion that they can do what they need to do. If you have an emergency, you're out of the county. Couldn't come up with anything back then. We air conditioned the courthouse in '98, $56,000, and that was an absolute struggle to get $50,000 extra dollars to do that. Now you've got about a $1.5–2 million capital improvements fund for when you have to do these things that you're able to do them. But you have things that have passed has been the utility sales tax, not the utility, the use tax has passed. Another stream of income that the city and the county has gotten. If we didn't have it at the county, it would be tough because all of our labor has went up. We pay our people at the courthouse as much as you pay a teacher starting out. That's the level we're at. But like I said, we have different streams coming in. The city does. The schools are limited in the streams of income they've got. And I think eventually they're going to have to do something about that, change that to make them less dependent on one thing to fund them there. But those are the issues. That's what Senate Bill 190 is. If you're 62 and above, you can come in, you can do it. It'll freeze your taxes at where they're at. And then depending on which county you're in, some counties are going to say, hey, you don't have to come in every year. We're just going to keep track with the coroner. And if you're dead, we'll take you off the rolls and away you go. That's just it. There is no set way how to enact Senate Bill 190. Other ones are saying, well, you're going to have to come in every year, bring your deed, get it notarized, and every year you're going to have to come in and refile for this. So again, it's been just a really a pain of an issue because of the lack of direction they gave you when you passed it. So I've had people call up and they're just mad as hell, and they're calling you every name in the book because you haven't done it already. They think, well, I want to get that tax relief, and you're telling them you're going to file this year. You're not going to get a single penny of relief this year. You're not going to get a penny of relief until they reassess your property. Oh, I didn't think I was going to have to pay any tax anymore. No, you are. You're going to have to pay what you were paying this year at least, and then it will be when they reassess it. So there's a lot of misinformation and at nobody's fault because nobody knew what was going on. But we've got it done. We're putting it on there. If it doesn't pass, I would be surprised. Then we'll go on to the next part. We'll try to go to the nutrition centers, etc., and get it done if that's what happens. So does anybody have any questions on it?
So you mentioned that it wouldn't go up via reassessment. What about like if new levies are placed?
Again, this is all the stuff that we're doing. If you read the language, it says that your tax bill, your tax liability will not go up. And then other people are saying, well, no, your tax assessment won't go up. Boone County passed it, and our lawyer at the county level to exempt the blind, there's a blind pension program and something else that's constitutionally mandated to collect that property tax. And then the other community organization, they put it on the ballot then to not exempt those on there. So if we don't pass it, we've had people say, well, we're going to get the signatures we need and we'll just put it on the ballot then ourselves. So that's the two ways you can do it. Either the commission can pass it or you can do it by initiative petition to put it on there.
So there's really no guidance on if, say, like whenever like a library board tax levy gets increased or something.
All this is going to come out in the wash eventually because these are the questions that we ask constantly and nobody can answer because they don't know. That's why I say it's a terrible piece of legislation. All of that stuff is just left up in the air, So yeah. Any other questions?
I know you don't know, Joe, but what's the cost to the school district?
Of course, you don't have any idea, and that's what
It's a reduction, but we still don't know.
we were debating with. Off the bat, it won't be anything. It'll be until they reassess before it'll start hitting. And it won't be much, but if take somebody my age, I'll be 62 in a couple of years. And if you start, you live to be 95 and you do have some inflation and it goes up, you can be sitting there paying $700 on what should be a $2,100 bill in 2065, So it's in the futures when it'll really come in to haunt you eventually, but I expect that they will pass amendments and addendums and everything else to this before it's all said and done. So, but it's just been a mess of a piece of legislation.
And just to point out, there's no means test. It just applies to everybody. You're 62,
Nope, just applies to everybody.
Yep. So that's another when we talk about revenue attacks on schools. This is one. And I think Grandpa should, if he has a need and he's struggling,
Well, I mean, they have that circuit breaker right now. They could have just raised the amount of the circuit breaker, but if you've got a $20 million house, that wouldn't help you out very much. Now, during the COVID, your property tax on your car didn't go down. Some cases it went up on a used car. So that was on the NADA standard, so they've already taken that off. And I think that passed so that your property taxes on your car will not go up again in the future, and they should go down.
It's not to put you on the spot, but would you agree or disagree that this particular issue is a tax decrease for seniors on the back of the school's revenue fund?
The vast majority of it will be on the school's revenue fund. The amount it hurts the city or the county, we don't get that much taxes out of it. Oh yeah, it's everybody. It's all your property taxes for everybody. But the majority of your property taxes you pay go to education. So obviously education is going to take the biggest bite.
So property tax at the expense of the school, you'd agree?
Yeah, it will. I mean, that's who it's going to affect. There's no question about that. That's not even debatable. But I say it will also affect your fire district. Anybody's got anything on their property tax levy,
And
that's who it'll affect.
didn't pass it. It's our state legislature.
No, we didn't have, they just dumped it on us. And then if you don't, they'll just do it by initiative petition. It'll be done anyway. Any other
discussion? I didn't want to cut you off.
No. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the audience? Great. All right. Well, listen, great job by everybody. Give our candidates a round of applause. Our presenters, please. Tipton Chamber of Commerce. Kelsey in the back has helped set this up for us here at Como. Is there any unfinished business anyone wants to bring up before we close down the forum? If not, thank you for coming tonight. It's been a pleasure working with you guys. Thank you.